Yeah, here we are. It's 8 a.m. and we're here at the intersection between faith, community, and civic engagement. This has been running since the beginning of COVID, every Thursday except Thanksgiving and when July 4th falls on a Thursday. And it has, I think, once in that time period. And it started, of course, with things, which were many, that we did not know about COVID, bringing leaders together of all kinds so that we might all be more knowledgeable together, we might work more effectively together, and therefore our impact might be exponential. And it really held true. But then that, of course, began to branch out because COVID itself had impact on our community and the needs and the concerns. And so we've been broadening that and what's really going on in the world and reaching there. And so we just finished like 8 weeks of mental health series, and we're doing all sorts of stuff with that series to reach as much impact as we can. But more about that at another intersection. But we come together to build collaboration and community. And we call that many, many different things. But as we'll find out with one this morning, we call those networks. But that's why we've done so much at this intersection where people get to know each other and find out about different efforts, different collaboratives. They join in, they cross pollinize. All of that we talk about is based on solid, long term research. And if you're curious about any of the research, you might make a note and we can talk about that later. Today and at the intersection, most of the time we're talking about action plans and what those come out of. We're working the research, right? And we're living that research of life and how we are best able and best at being human together. So, we're going to do just a couple important announcements in our efforts to co labor and to become a stronger community in proximity. And this will give more people time to come into the Zoom room. I really want to encourage people to come to the Sacred Roundtable this afternoon. It's from 3 to 4:30, and I hope that Billy will be able to at least put a link in there to RSVP. It's no cost, but it does help us if you register so we can plan for those chewy granola bars and that free bottle of water that you'll get there. But what you get at the roundtables in that 90 minutes is an opportunity to work with your team or to work on an action plan that you're actively engaged in, like the one we're going to be hearing today. So if you're able to come, it's every other month, 90 minutes in person. Bring whatever you're working on, with you, whatever that means. And we always hear a story and work on a skill. And today we're following up from the Action Labs, which are also the alternating every other month. The last one was on mental health. And so we've been building that collaboration and community across this time. But we're going to be learning about how to tell our stories of action so that they get traction today. Traction. So we get a skill, and then you spend most of the 90 minutes working on whatever action plan is current. And you kind of tweak it with the things we learn together, but the other people around you. And I cannot tell you how many times that's cross pollinized into stronger action. The next announcement, Oblate Summer Institute, is next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, June 15th through 17th. It too is on mental health, but it's going into the spiritual and that deeper inner aspects Our own Doug Beach is going to be one of the keynotes. He's been coordinating Pathways to Hope all these years, action with traction, but looking deeply at what moves us as people into purpose. Our next action lab, which is 3 hours in person, is in July. And I wish off the top of my head I could tell you what that date is, but I can't. But it's in July, and maybe Billy will find that and put that into chat. Also, no cost, 3 hours in person. Again, working your action plans. But in July, we're going to be looking at older adults and what that means. Sacred has been working with SALSA, the San Antonio for senior adults, but on a portal that's just for aging gracefully with resources in our city. So, and some of us on this screen now like fall into that group of people. So make sure you come to that important action lab. And then in August, please mark your calendars. And we've been strongly moving this way because of all the research and what's happening with mental health in our world today. Pathways to Hope, August 28th and 29th. We've got some incredible people coming to that. The governor of New Mexico is going to be giving the keynote on Friday. She has done a lot of leveraging and action in terms of community work in her state. And so she's going to be calling us to action. If you can't figure out, our overall theme for this year is action. What does it mean to take all that we know and all that we're inspired to do and go into action, which leads us into our briefing today. So I want to thank Martha and Bob for coming today and, giving me a ping not long ago. And Bob and I have been working together for 3 decades on this kind of work. And over the last, I don't know, 7 or 10 years, we've put together through the intersection close to 30 collaboratives on different community concerns. But here we are today to witness a birth of a new collaborative, the Collective Action Network here in San Antonio. And I'm just going to give Martha and Bob a heads up, and then they're going to give us a map of a briefing of their collaboration that they're forming. But I'm going to ask you at the end, Martha and Bob, why you're really doing this, what purpose, and your real why, Martha's why and Bob's why, and what this does for the city, for San Antonio, the values and purpose. But why are you showing up? And I don't mean just at this morning. So that's your heads up to what I'm going to ask. So I'm handing it over to you. Give us a map. Brief us.
All right. I think Martha is going to kick us off.
Okay.
You have to unmute first, though, Martha.
You're still muted, Martha.
Can you
There
hear me
you
now?
go.
There you go.
Okay. We have another team member, Susan Price, and she is in all ways as much a member of the team, and in some ways more of a member. Sometimes she's maybe the brains behind the operation with Bob and me. But we're here to tell you about the Collaborative Action Network, CAN, that we've created in the last few months. It's something that I had been interested in doing for a year and a half or so, but I don't have the talent to do it. So what you do when you go around to groups with, you're talking about my smiley face and all that, is, do you know anything about building websites? So finally I found Bob, who knows all about building websites. And then he joined us with Susan because, like his relationship with you, Anne, he and Susan have been connected for a long time. We're really trying to accomplish two things, at least in my mind. We're building a website, but we're actually using that as something concrete around which we can build a coalition. We have a lot of organizations here in the city of San Antonio, many of them very small startups that are trying to do something. And in our case, the something they're trying to do is directed toward current political and social issues, and they're trying to do something to resist, I would say is the most common word that we all share. That can range from people who are participating in the No Kings marches to people who are interested in conservation and everything else you can imagine in between. So we're meeting on a every 2 weeks basis to facilitate the coalescing of this team. That's kind of where we are now. But at the same time, Bob and Susan have already created a complete website that they'll show you that thoroughly accommodates, we think, what we need at least to get started, which is to create connective tissue between all of these organizations. So I'll turn that over to Bob now.
Thank you, Martha. We're not there yet, but we're getting close. And so, what I'm going to show you, we're going to just tell the story, embellish the story a little bit, and give you kind of an update of where we're at. And then I'm going to share what we call in the business wireframes. They're flat images of pages. They're mobile pages because I think that's just a little more familiar to everyone. So there'll be a little bit of scrolling when I get to that point. So you'll have to be paying attention, looking at the screen. But for the most part, we just want to walk down and walk you through. And as Martha mentioned, we're a group of people that want to connect citizens with resistance group across our city. We're building a website that will be this connective tissue, as Martha mentioned. What are we trying to do? What problem are we trying to solve? We found as we went, not just to protests, but just to any type of action oriented group meetings of democracy, meetings of people that want to do something. We found out that a lot of people want to act but don't know where to start. I think back to almost a year and a half ago. I was shocked that we had a protest at Chip Roy's office, and that he had an office at Thousand Oaks and 281. I said, good Lord, we're having a protest on the north side of San Antonio. What's going on? But then people started to show up that were moms with kids and African American retired veterans that just wanted to do something. And we found out that there are groups there represented by a few, and they're doing great work, but they're not easily discovered. The outreach is fragmented, and in some cases, as we went along, we noticed it's duplicated. So one trusted place to find ways to engage people was something that we said, hey, this is our opportunity. We need to have this connective tissue so that residents can find these existing organizations and increase participation across all groups. And I know, Sacred, you all are not new to that. You understand that concept. That's part of who you are. So we wanted to define exactly, what we are and what we're not. We're not a new umbrella organization. We weren't trying to create something new that's going to compete with others. We're not going to be a merged website where we can say, oh, well, we can put your website into this and we can just have one big. That's not the idea. What we're not trying to replace any group's identity or any of your tools or any of the things that you do. But what we are trying to do is just create a simple shared website, kind of a front door for civic action. So if someone wants to find out about Sacred or they want to find out about 5051, that they have an opportunity to do that. We connect people to opportunities and then provide an events calendar and a group directory that is kept up. And we have found that it might be a little more simple to do that now as we're able to embrace more technologies. So that's when I reached out to Susan Price of Firecat Studio, and Martha and I said, "Look, we need to get as many leaders as we can into a room." And we gathered, and Susan said, "Let's create this workshop." And Susan, if you want to speak to this, go right ahead and just talk about the process a little bit.
In my work, we do a lot of collaborative design. And what we find is groups that have a say in what's built own the result. We do this in city projects and state agency projects, and this seemed a good opportunity to build that consensus. So we gathered folks in real life. We find that there's more hunger than there has been since COVID for people gathering in person. So we gathered at a local co-working spot, Key Co-working, and we had 28 folks representing a wide variety of different action communities. And we had them use stickies and Sharpies to answer questions like, who are you? Who else do you think we should be talking to? Uh, what are the goals of what we could build? What is the impact we hope to have? And then a really interesting discussion, what are the guardrails we need? That's how we came up with things like we're not trying to replace any one group's online identity. They already have their online identity. What we want to do is be that connective tissue. And then we talked about the obstacles that we are going to face. Not all these groups align on all the issues. They might feel competitive about who, like we're sharing one pie of people's time and energy, say. But all of this discussion is how we build the connective tissue of the relationships between the leaders of these organizations.
And I'm going to jump in. I know we're sharing something. Well, it's so small I can't read it. It's not meant to read, but the reason why I wanted to show this is that these are literally the stickies that people put up on the wall that they wrote by hand, and we take a picture of it, and Susan's team is able to translate this into a board that we can then share at the next meeting and say, look, this is what we accomplished. These are all the groups that you said weren't here. This is the impact that we think we can make, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really fascinating in those terms to be able to use technology, not just to show, oh, look what we can do, but to give feedback, to show, look, it seemed like chaos when we were doing it. We're sticking little notes up literally on the wall. We didn't have the right board that we needed, but when we got it back and was able to share this with the team, then now it has a little more resonance. So when we asked people, well, what are we doing? They said, well, let's talk about some goals. Let's just be, what if we had 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year? What if 70,000 people could be in the streets on 5 days notice because we were able to make this happen through this website? What about a platform that connects every group, every action, every day, so when the call goes out, people show up? What if the John Lewis Act passes, the Dilley Detention Center closes? What if the House and Senate flip? We can dream, right? Success is measured by who shows up and how often and when they keep coming back. So, those were some of the things that we said, hey, why not? Why can't we have, these concrete wins for democracy? And when we gathered again, we created a name for the group, and that's what we shared with you earlier, the Collective Action Network. And we reviewed what the website was going to look like. I shared a little bit of the wireframes, not as much as I'm going to share with you this morning, because this was just a week and a half ago. But we also established a governing council that would be able to establish and talk about some of those criteria that we were talking about. What is going to be the criteria for getting information on the site? Who is allowed to put information on the site? And it just has that kind of filter that you know, we're trying to, I guess, if you will, create fairness. So what's on the site? You know, what does it look like? That's why we're here. I wanted to give you a little preview first. We're making sure that no matter the type of device, whether you pick up your phone or a tablet or anything in between, or turn it sideways, or landscape or portrait, or you get on a desktop, or you look at it on your TV at home, the site is going to look the same. So in the business, we call that responsive web design. So everything, as you notice, mobile, tablet, and desktop, the pages look the same. I'm going to go out of PowerPoint, and I'm going to go into a different program now and just look at some of the um, mobile screens that I'm showing you now. And I'm going to kind of go from our home page into each of the sub pages on the site. It's going to be a little detailed. I'm not going to go through everything. You won't be able to read or see everything, but you'll kind of get the idea. I will zoom in. So let me kind of center this a little bit. So can everyone see the homepage? Every day we make choices that define us. Is that visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So as you can see, a flat kind of wireframe. It's black and white. We're not showing any images. We're not showing any color. We're just kind of focusing on content. So now when we share this with the groups, they get an idea of, oh, this is the type of information that they're looking for. And it's also identified as what are your key blocks of information, your A block, your B block, and your C block. I talk about this all the time. What's the most important thing about your organization? What's the second most important thing? You want people to take action. The third most important thing, what's the latest? What's going on? What are some trending topics that I can look at and look out for? And then from there, you can add things that are tertiary to what you're doing, making a difference. Here's some stories about what's already happened. Our Martin Luther King March. We have a weekly pub crawl that Martha puts on. So now we can start to focus on some of those events, what's upcoming, and then also finally having a calendar of events, and then find your people. Here's where we connect people to different groups. So if you want to join a group, or if you want to act as an individual, you can also do this. So I'm going down the home page here as you would scroll down on your phone, and kind of giving you a head to toe, if you will, view of that. And now I'm going to scroll back up and show you some of the secondary pages that you would get to from our main menu. But I'm not going to go through as much detail because of time, but you get the idea. Ask for help, get involved, stay informed, events. And then I have a contribute and join us page, but we're really looking at doing that kind of as a second phase, and maybe not rolling out with that immediately. And we're also planning on doing this as kind of a pilot soft launch, and kind of testing the functionality of what we're building here. So here's our ask for help. You kind of see it stays with the same type of format. And again, these design notes are just some notes about, what's going on the page. Sometimes they're interaction notes. Sometimes it's just about what's happening on the page, and it's helping the person that's viewing this to see, okay, I get this now. This is why we have this on this page. But also, each of these pages have their own hierarchy of the A, B, and C, the first, the second, and the third most important. So this is different ways to ask for help and things that you can do. We have a get involved page, ways to participate, 2 ways to join a group, act on your own, 12 groups and growing. So again, these are all examples. All of this is placeholder content, but it kind of gives you an idea of what would be on the site. And then finally, a stay informed page of kind of topics and things that are similar to what you would see on a 5 calls app. What's going on, trending topics, things that are happening on immigration rights, housing and tenants, labor and economy. And you all have something similar as well on the Sacred site. And then finally, an events calendar. And we have actually two different versions of this. One that is kind of similar to what's an events calendar that TPR uses, and I know we're getting close on time here, so I'm going to go very fast. And finally, as I mentioned, the last two are uh, contributing to the movement that will probably add on later, and then choosing to be with us, joining as a member. So if I come back to our PowerPoint now, all of this is to take and help organizations and encouraging them to join the network. And we want you to do your sacred thing. You know, you're the experts in gathering or gaining collaboration and connecting people to organizations. So here's where you can help us when we're getting now to this content phase where we need to actually fill in the blanks on these pages. And then also we're going to, as I mentioned, have a soft launch, a pilot, if you will, so we can test the site, and your participation in that would be greatly appreciated. Our next meeting is Monday, so we're having our announcement at the very end of our presentation, and that's at the Northeast Bexar County Democrats headquarters. They were gracious enough to give us a meeting space. Key co-working was not available. So on Monday, June 15th at 6 p.m. in person only, it's at San Pedro and Jackson Keller, is when we're going to be meeting again and starting to talk more about the next steps of the website specifically and what needs to be done. Little over, but in time before the end of the hour, and we have a few minutes for questions. I appreciate
I
it. Thank
noticed,
you.
oh my gosh, it's perfect. You're not a little over. It's perfect. And you've also put in there your contact information. And I noted this earlier that everything that we're talking about and doing is also backed by research in terms of impact, efficiency, effectiveness. And if you want to go more into that research, I've asked someone else from Pro Social World, Susan, to put into chat some upcoming opportunities where you can learn about the research of collaboration, of what we're all have been doing here. And it's all based on research by somebody who won a Nobel laureate for it, Lynn Ostrom. But finding that when we work with basic human needs, right? And we discover and are clear on what our value and purpose is in why we're showing up, but then what that is as a collective, kind of that deeper inner stuff. And we've seen it today in this example. Then what starts to happen is that organically as humans, it builds into what we might call governance, but it builds into structure out of our deep purpose. So I asked Martha and Bob early on to be thinking about, for them each, why are you showing up? Why are you doing this particular work that you're doing? What's that purpose? What value does it add to your life? And then I want to ask everybody while they're doing that to be thinking about the same thing, but only as the larger community, our larger collective of San Antonio and Bexar County. Why are we doing this? What's this purpose? In this particular example of what earlier I think Bob called resistance, right? So Martha or Bob, would you be willing to share with us why you're showing up? And if you're not comfortable, that's fine. But we'd love to hear why
Martha, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, for as long as I can remember, like at least since first grade, I've had this wide streak of righteous indignation. And so I became a social worker, and I spent my life as an advocate An advocate is somebody who tries to educate and negotiate within, to change things and make things better for people. And in this place and time, I now feel that advocacy is not sufficient. And so what I've shifted to is a model of activism, which means we now feel, or I now feel like we are on the outside. We're not on the inside where there's room for us to negotiate or educate. It now calls for pressure, demonstration, insistence, demands for people to do the right thing. And I've been strongly influenced by Robert Putnam, who wrote Bowling Alone, and talks about the criticality of community, and which is to say, even if we didn't have the current political problems that we have, we still have a diminished civic life, at least since the 70s. And if we're going to change or modify or affect anything that faces us as a society right now, we're going to have to rebuild our community. So for me, that is the arc under which all of this exists.
And Bob? Beautiful, Martha. And we
Yes.
could have a whole
Wow.
conversation, right? Just
Yeah.
the two of us or all
Yeah.
of us around that. Bob,
Call me
where are you
anytime.
showing up? Yeah.
My Q-mate Luna back there just encouraged me to do something.
Uh-huh.
That's yours. No, I like Martha. I just reached a point where I felt I couldn't be on the sidelines, but when I anymore, so I had to do something. But what I wanted to share, just a quick story, was before I left or retired from AT&T. Uh, at the end of 2022, of course, we had just gone through all of the things that happened in 2020, and there were a lot of good grassroots kind of groups that were forming within the company and doing things that um, that meant something. And I started facilitating some meetings, and what I just pulled down from the wall was a purpose of one of these groups: to encourage action that contributes to equity by increasing the awareness of racism and other civil injustices against marginalized groups. And I keep that up on my wall just to remind myself that what that meant was that we could meet like this every other week, uh, with some sponsorship for a while, and then after a while, it wasn't on anybody's key metrics for their appraisal, so they kind of the executives sort of dropped off, but we still continued to meet. And what I found was that I called it uh, a phenomenon of where people would share just what was going on, and that's where I learned about my blind spots as a an older white male, and understanding the privilege that I have, and realizing things that were still happening in the world that I thought, oh no, surely that can't happen. And all of that started to open my eyes, and people sharing these stories every other week. And I'm telling you, we would just meet and share stories. That was it. But what happened was people started saying, this is the most important meeting of the month, or the week. I guess that's the sound that we've gone too long, right? That's the and that was shocking to me, that there were requirements meetings, there were all kinds of meetings that people were attending, but they look forward to just coming together and sharing what was going on in their lives. And that really touched me, and I started kind of saying, this is what I want to do when I have more time to focus on it, and make a difference by just getting people to share their stories, but also to do something collectively. And we did that as well by having as many different types of meetings as we can, or as we could, to focus on the different issues. So
I know
that's
what I've heard this morning too in your briefing from both of you is that then in this current work that you're doing, right, that you noticed that there were various groups across San Antonio and Bexar County who are doing this kind of resistance work. And then they would come together, right, for rallies and protest, right, but kind of separately. And you you kind of identified a gap, a real basic need within that effort was this connective tissue that Martha keeps talking about and Susan talked about. And so you're meeting that need with the website that you're designing, right? So now I'm going to the larger collective purpose. So in doing the work that you're doing, and I'm going to open this up to anybody and everybody because you can add your thoughts or what you know. You can also put it into chat. But then why would the community show up to this website and to this work, especially those different organizations that are trying to do that kind of resistance work? Why would they show up? Thoughts?
I'll take a stab at that.
Okay, go Susan.
You guys know that it's hard to keep up an online presence, that it's a demanding nest of baby birds, social media and the website and, flyers, and you're already asking for a one pager, which is a great idea. But what we're looking to organize is automated ways of taking what you're already posting and repurposing that. The connective tissue can't make additional demands on your groups. But what we gain by having a collected place is we're having the right conversations between the leadership and the leaders of each groups, and the active action agents that you all know are so important are aware and can coordinate with other groups so that we can magnify our impact.
Wow. I hear in that so that we know we're connected to something bigger than ourselves. That it's not one of us in isolation and, oh, what can I do? Right?
It's
To
the
like look
antithesis,
at what we're doing. Yeah.
antithesis to divide and conquer. If what we're experiencing is the effect of divide and conquer is to make us feel alone, to make us feel like our actions will not make a difference. And we're intentionally countering that.
And then what our research tells us, when we come together in that collective value and purpose, the wine of why we show up, right? That as humans, we naturally and organically start to structure that and bring on, so you get connective tissue to muscle and skeletons to those websites and the directions. So I've also asked the other Susan on the screen, Susan Soleil, who's with Pro Social World, to put into chat for those of us who are really into all of this, right? Ways that we can learn the research and better tweak our work. And so I highly encourage you. There's a group and what's in San Antonio, a Pro Social Action Lab group that's been operating for not even a year now, that now is connecting the Spurs to Pathways to Hope in August and raising compassion across the entire community of San Antonio and our knowledge. So we could go on about that. And the compassion elements of simply talking, listening, and connecting to each other, which is what Bob was describing when he was still at work, right? Simply coming together and telling our stories. And that we know that we're part of something larger than ourselves. That is a basic human need and adds to value. And so I'm also keenly aware, and we, in a compassionate way, always close the room no later than 8:45, quarter till the hour. We try to get the meat of it all between 8 and 8:30. And so thank you, Martha, Bob, Susan, for doing that. We'll all be able to utilize this posting, this recording, and Billy's going to make sure that that's posted and he'll put into chat as well. where you can find this recording. So when you go back to your organization, your team, your congregation, your civic leadership, whoever that might be, you can, go to minute 8, whatever it is, I'm making that up, but minute 8 to 20. And instead of, playing telephone, you can say, this is what is happening with Bear Can, right? I love that you did the bear part, by the way. Because so many of us were already going, San Antonio can do this, right? But now we're talking, we're part of something even bigger than that. So we have time for maybe one question beyond the chat. People can put questions, comments. You probably have been. Any questions?
And Beverly has her hand up.
Okay, Beverly Watts Davis, you go.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Billy, for saying that. I have one question, and this just comes from, I'm so pleased to meet Bob and Martha and all the lady who just spoke. As an organizer for many, many years, I was trained under Saul Alinsky, which, literally trained Martin Luther King and all of those others. And what you're doing, and every day every day I'm reading about something else that I'm going, I can't believe this is America. Most recently, there was a post that the Office of Management Budget is literally going to get rid of all of the peer review processes in the federal government and allow the appointed people from this administration to just decide who gets funded. And they don't have to justify any criteria or anything. And I've watched this pattern as getting, over and over again. This is fundamentally going to hurt nonprofits in particular, who are serving those who are under resources the most in need. In fact, they seem to be very targeted. And I'm just glad to see you all. I know it's wonderful for people to come and talk because that's cathartic, it's therapeutic. But I'm asking, I want to come to your meeting. There's another meeting that night with a very key neighborhood group that's fighting some very important issues. But I'm just wondering, when you all are coming together and you're talking, I heard that the woman who spoke just before me, who talked about people coming together and then there's more work that's put on. She's absolutely right, because that's when it seems that the movements dissipate, is when there is actual work, that some of the work, it is work to keep people plugged in. It is work to keep people informed, and we have to do that work. So I'm wondering, how is that work getting done if no one in the group kind of owns that to help move it forward? Because talking to each other is great, but we have to move to make action happen. So I'm just putting that on the table and asking, and I guess I'm going to ask you, Martha, how do we move from talk to action? And I can tell, Martha, you're already there.
Well, this has sort of become my personal mission in life.
No, you're not.
I've been involved in local politics since I was no longer employed by the federal government.
Yep.
And to my frustration, I go to meeting after meeting where people say, yes, we must do something, and we will meet next month. And inside, my soul is saying, no, there's no sense of urgency here. So the first thing is, I think, if you're leading a group, you need to be pushing them to meet next week, meet in 2 days, make a decision, be a good CEO. And, the volunteer world doesn't lend itself very well to having somebody like that. And so what I finally decided is I just have to be a freelancer. Okay. So I've become sort of a community gadfly of resistance groups. And I spend a good part of every week going around meeting people, telling them who I am and telling them how I think they fit in all of this and who they need to talk to. Being a social worker, I kind of do social histories on everybody I meet. And then when I meet somebody who has something in common with somebody else, I give them their number and say, you should go talk to them. You know, there's a notion, and I know this is an idea that belongs to somebody, but I can't remember who it is, who talks about one conversation at a time. And that's how you make change. You just have to talk to one person at a time and get them on board, and then come back and check and be sure they're on board. Some people, of course, you know, are more self-directed, but a lot of people are uncertain, especially in situations like this, you know, where there are political implications or fears of safety and so on. And sometimes I compare it to when I was in the military, and that was you would have a long line of people marching, maybe 200 people marching somewhere. And the job of the officers and the non-commissioned officers is to run up and down that line continually and be sure that everybody understands what we're doing and what's going to happen next. You don't just wait and hope that you hear the guy up front giving you an order. That may not work. And so it's a continuous operation that I think requires a personal commitment and a willingness actually to operate kind of independently, because a lot of volunteer organizations, as I said, are not really structured, and we could talk about this for a long time, not structured or not suited temperamentally to bossing people around. But
we're now
nice
1 minute
around.
Yeah, we're now 1 minute over our compassionate time. And I'm willing to stay 5 more minutes, but I'm going to say to everyone, one, we're going to do a series which started today, and working with Martha and Bob, where each Thursday we're going to bring one of those organizations that they're helping to create connective tissue for, which is also exactly why Sacred was built in terms of resources, right? Now we're talking about, you know, those humans who are, doing advocacy work and activism work. So we're starting this series on Thursday mornings, where we hopefully, and so if you're part of one of those organizations, you know, let's put you on the schedule for Thursday morning. And hopefully Martha and or Bob will also be coming, and we'll watch the website grow. We'll watch the launch. We'll be hearing from different organizations of what the value is to all of this. So continue to join us at the intersection every Thursday morning. And I'm really encouraging everybody to come to the roundtable, the Sacred Roundtable, this afternoon at 3 to 4:30. Where we all will roll up our sleeves to the actions that each of us are working on. Bring your team with you, Martha and Bob, Susan. It would be great if you showed up this afternoon at 3. I'm going to be talking about you, so at least you should, you know, I'll talk about you in front of your face. But but as this example of a new collaborative forming, more connective tissue. And you know, what Beverly was talking about in spiritual terms as practicing, you know, how do we keep, and I would say, like in athletic words, how do we keep exercising the connective tissue, the things that how do we, you know, utilize that website so we become that stronger, more efficient, more effective, more human impact in the world. So I'm willing to stay on a couple more minutes, but those who really need to leave, and some who do have already done that, right? But we can do a little more conversation. Billy, I don't know though. He Sacred empowers this time together. So Billy may need to go. So
I'm good for a couple of more minutes. We're good.
Okay, couple more. If somebody needs to say something other than, I'm going to say thank you all for showing up, and Martha and Bob and Susan Price. We've got several Susans here, so there must be, you know, a Susan collaborative that's forming. But thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for coming and showing up this morning. But more importantly, the work that you're doing out in the world, and more than talking. But here's something interesting. And we could go into the research too about conversation, because I heard that both from Bob and from Martha. Conversation, if you look at the word, is that we all get in verse or in song or in sync with each other, which comes and builds that relationship. And action, impact grows at the speed of relationship. So it's conversation is not just talk. There's a lot of talk, but when you find that connecting value and purpose, the real why, it just in humans starts to move into outer world action, and we start to take shape together. Again, everything I'm saying is based on tons of research. So thank you for the work you're doing. One last comment or question from the crowd.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mary.
Okay. I'm wondering, where is this meeting that you're going to have at 3 to 4:30 in person?
Well, we're going to put that into chat, like the
Okay.
actual name and the address. Billy, can you grab that from Mock? It's
Just
Morgan's. There it is.
There it is. Yeah.
There it
Morgan's Wealthy
is.
Assistance Center.
It's out there by Morgan's Wonderland, because this is also, an action center that they have created that's full access available, both in terms of physical, but work-wise, mental, emotional access. So it's just a real model for the community and in community. But thank you for asking, Mary. Maybe one more? Y'all are great. I'm wondering, what group should we hear from next week? Of those that are building this connective tissue, collective action network, resistance with reason. Who should we hear from?
Maybe Darcy Walker, because she's on the Zoom call right now, and she could give us a yes or no from Universalist Unitarian Church.
Oh, Darcy, what do you think? You're muted. We'd love to hear your voice.
This is amazing. I probably can't see the afternoon event, but I do hope to see more of you more often.
No, we're nominating you to be the talent next week on the Thursday morning call.
Sorry, unable to do that. Thank you for the offer.
Well, you're welcome. Well, you look at your calendar though, Darcy. So for any upcoming Thursday at 8 to 8:30 that you might be available, we'd love to have you come and present, give a briefing on what you're doing through UU, and then how that is connecting with Bear Can and what Martha and Bob, and then maybe we will be able to actually look at the website and see how what UU is doing is being integrated into that connective tissue. So we'll be learning that process together, which many of us have been learning in terms of sacred, because it's the same thing. It's the same
I'm glad to
thing.
say I'm not the only person from First UU who was on here.
Well, good. So you guys talk. Or the other person can say they can come. Who else is on here from UU?
I saw Diane Dusterhoff. I don't know if she's still here.
Oh, Diane's a good one.
And I won't be able to present next Thursday, sorry.
Okay. Find us a Thursday, though, Darcy, and let Martha or Bob or me know.
How about, and again, on the call, so I'm putting him on the spot, but what about Peter Bella from 5051? And he's also graciously agreed to help us with our curating team, our governance team. I think that would be a fascinating presentation, just to hear about all the work that they've done and are doing.
All right, Peter.
You're welcome, Peter.
What do you think about next Thursday? I want to hear about 5051.
I think I could do that.
There
It's
you
awfully
go.
It's awfully early in the morning for me, but I'm here now. So, hey.
That's right.
You have
Hey,
no idea what it took for me to get here, Peter.
I know you can say that with everybody. So Peter, what I encourage you to do, and Martha and Bob, is kind of work together, but we'll be hearing about 5051 next week. And then Bob and Martha be thinking about the following weeks. But we already got you thinking, right? And others that who are sitting here that you're part of Bear Can or becoming a part of that. And then presenting on Thursday morning so we can then learn about 5051 and what they're doing in terms of resistance with reason. We can hear from you and what they're doing in terms of resistance and reason. But then how are those things dovetailing and working together and becoming stronger together, right? I think one, and then we're going to sign off. I know early on in the work I've been doing, one day there was this light bulb that went off, and it was like the light bulb of protest. And that what that word has become over the years is about what we're against, right? When there's a protest, it's largely about, or we tend to think about like what we want to stop, which is true. You know, it's a protest. But if you break that word down, it really is what we're for. So the thing that we want to stop, what do we want to replace it with? What are we for? Right? And this country was founded on democracy, right? That we all have a hand and part and voice in it, right? What we are for. And I'm just going to bring this one circle around because Beverly reminded me when she was talking about the elected leadership or those folks deciding where the funding goes instead of the people. We have a local left effort that is doing that. And it's called All Hearts on Deck. All Hearts on Deck. And there is a recording they presented here at Sacred not long ago, but where they're bringing nonprofits together, much like this group, and it's through the Area Foundation. But their action is that they're in conversation with those budget makers, city and county, and offering the data from the community to inform the budgets that are based on the most basic of human needs, that it's data informed in our city and county. There's the work, and it's happening. And we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, are doing that work. That's the end of my sermon for today. I gotta go. You gotta go. It's all too good. Don't stop smiling and don't stop working off of that positive energy. And I hope to see some of you this afternoon at 3 at the mock. So thanks all. Thank you again, Martha, Bob, Susan,
Thank you.
Kendra, Sam, Martha, Mabel, Joe, Billy. You know, I'm going through the list here. Thank you, thank you, thank you all. We'll see you if not this afternoon, we'll see you next week. You bet, at the intersection.
Man.